Welcome to Eternal Focus, devotions to inspire your walk with God. Draw near to the throne of grace, a journey of faith and encounter. Let us then approach God's throne of grace with confidence, so that we may receive mercy and find grace to help us in our time of need. Hebrews chapter 4, verse 16. There's an open invitation from the Creator of the universe, an invitation to step boldly into His presence. It's a call to leave behind fear, hesitation, and self-reliance, and instead come before His throne, assured of His mercy and grace. This profound invitation echoes across the pages of Scripture, drawing us back to ancient encounters where men and women met God in raw, transformative moments. Now, Moses used to take a tent and pitch it outside the camp some distance away, calling it the tent of meeting. Anyone inquiring of the Lord would go to the tent of meeting outside the camp, and whenever Moses went out to the tent, all the people rose and stood at the entrances to their tents, watching Moses until he entered the tent. As Moses went into the tent, the pillar of cloud would come down and stay at the entrance, while the Lord spoke with Moses. Whenever the people saw the pillar of cloud standing at the entrance to the tent, they all stood and worshipped, each at the entrance to their tent. The Lord would speak to Moses face to face, as one speaks to a friend. Then Moses would return to the camp, but his young aide Joshua son of Nun did not leave the tent. Exodus 33, 7-11, the tent of meeting, a sacred place. In the wilderness journey of the Israelites, the tent of meeting became the designated place for encountering God. It was set up outside the camp, accessible to anyone willing to go. Though open, many chose not to draw near themselves, but relied on Moses to meet with God on their behalf. They worshipped from afar, watching as the pillar of cloud signified God's presence. This pattern mirrors much of what we see today. God's throne room is open to all through Christ, yet many still wait for others to approach God for them. We watch from a distance, hoping for second-hand encounters, when the very heart of the gospel is a personal relationship with the Father. Joshua, a worshipper in the shadow of the Almighty. One individual stood apart in the Exodus narrative, Joshua, the young aide of Moses. While Moses spoke with God face to face, Joshua lingered in the tent, unwilling to leave the sacred space even after Moses returned to camp. Joshua's devotion paints a vivid picture of raw passion for God. He wasn't content with being a mere bystander. Instead, he chose to remain in the presence of the Almighty, seeking and waiting on God for himself. This steadfast hunger for more of God molded him into the leader who would later guide the Israelites into the Promised Land. Joshua's journey reminds us that great leadership and impact are forged in the quiet, uncelebrated moments of worship and surrender. Before he led armies and conquered cities, Joshua was a servant and a worshipper, willing to go the extra mile when no one was watching. Faithful, hungry, willing. God's greatest invitations often call for our faithful response. Are you willing to be like Noah, who obeyed God in the face of ridicule? Like Jacob, who wrestled with God until he received his blessing? Like Joshua, who stayed behind to linger in the presence of the Lord? When we submit ourselves fully to God, seeking His face and waiting in His presence, He begins to work in us in ways we cannot imagine. He refines us, strengthens us, and prepares us for the purposes He has destined for us. God's invitation to approach His throne of grace isn't just a one-time offer, it's a daily call. It's a call to prioritize His presence, to step away from distractions, and to engage with Him personally. Here are some questions to help you discover deeper intimacy with God. What's holding you back? Reflect on what keeps you from regularly meeting with God. Are there distractions, fears, or habits that need to be surrendered? How can you go the extra mile? Like Joshua, how can you carve out intentional time to linger in God's presence? Whether it's early mornings, late nights, or quiet moments throughout the day, prioritize Him. Where is God leading you? Spend time in prayer, asking God to reveal His plans for your life. Trust that your time in His presence will equip you for the road ahead. God longs to meet with you, not as a distant deity, but as a loving Father and faithful friend. When we approach Him with confidence, we find the mercy, grace, and strength we need to face every challenge. The time we spend with Him transforms us, preparing us to fulfill His purposes and impact generations to come. So draw near, stay a little longer. Let His presence mold you into someone who carries His glory into the world. For when you dwell in the shadow of the Almighty, you are not only strengthened for today, you are equipped to bring lasting change tomorrow. The invitation is open. Will you step boldly into His presence? Thank you for joining me in Eternal Focus Devotions to inspire your walk with God.